being able to start a charter school by meeting on Sundays after church and putting together kind of a helter-skelter application and then getting authorized and saying, what do we do now, wasn't enough, because we were in the business of changing people's lives.
You're listening to the Bold by Choice podcast with Vashanta Harris and Jim Gunner. Real talk about charter schools, from the boardroom to the classroom. Powered by the National Charter Schools Institute.
Welcome back, friends, to the Bold by Choice podcast. Real talk about charter schools from the boardroom to the classroom. I'm your host, Vashanta Harris.
And I'm Don Cooper. Today we continue our Founders Library series with a conversation that honors one of the movement's most influential builders. That person's Linda Brown, founding CEO of Building Excellent Schools.
Now, from the very beginning, Linda Brown believed that starting a school wasn't enough. It had to be excellent, academically strong, mission-driven, and totally relentless about results.
Through BES, she trained and launched more than 50 schools nationwide, shaping leaders who believe that great schools didn't just happen by chance, they happened by design.
Yes, in this Founders Library interview, Linda Brown reflects on those early Massachusetts charter years, the trial, the grit, and the high bar she set for what it really means to change lives through education.
You know, her story really reminds us that being bold also means being really disciplined, too. It means building capacity, raising expectations, and defining winning as students achieving the highest levels they can.
Well, let's listen to Linda Brown in her own voice, educator, founder, and the visionary leader behind Building Excellent Schools.
I think of all the things that I really founded, and what I will be remembered for is Building Excellent Schools. What founder means to me is something that didn't exist before, and someone came by and went, oh, boy, we could use this. I think for the person who first decided there would be ice cream. Oh, now there'll be ice cream. Well, we had charter schools in this country from the early 1990s. And Massachusetts started with being able to open charter schools in 1995. But between 93 and 95, those were the years when people became founders, because not a lot existed. We banded together. We were a small band of buddies in this work. We learned incredible things like, oh, you could call it a network if you had more than one school in your state. Or you could have really high expectations and force people to hit those expectations. Or you could really be demanding. And if a student didn't turn in homework, you could call a parent right away. Some folks from the West Coast would use terms like, oh, let 1,000 flowers bloom. And we looked around in a year and a half and we saw that 1,000 flowers had bloomed. And in fact, they weren't all good. We thought, oh, well, there it is. If you let 1,000 flowers bloom, you're going to have some really bad ones and some really good ones and some moderate ones and a couple of great ones. It was in Massachusetts that we were able to say that we weren't going to have 1,000 flowers blooming. That being able to start a charter school by meeting on Sundays after church and putting together kind of a helter-skelter application and then getting authorized and saying, what do we do now, wasn't enough, because we were in the business of changing people's lives, changing young people's lives, in some instances very young people's lives. We took that as our mission. And the other thing we took as a mission is we could be the people who chose the people to start charter schools. And that was really the birth of Building Excellent Schools. We were learning as we grew. Rather than walking into a world that was already formed, we were forming the world. And that felt really good. That felt incredible. We were onto something. We were trying to figure out in each and every instance different ways to communicate. And I think that's at base part of the nature of charter schools, which is a different way of communicating. We have to raise the money each year to bring in these fellows whose lives will never be the same again. A lot of people we relocate. They've come to know us as the Federal Relocation Program. Poor students, poor children are poor, whether they're in Nashville or Denver or Camden, New Jersey, or San Antonio, Texas. They're poor, and most of the time, children in poverty also have a poverty in being literate. They're poor in being literate. We look for fellows who have and are of very high capacity. It means, can they get up at 3 in the morning and put on a hard hat and see a facility? Capacity to work 24/7. Capacity to leave your family for 3 weeks at a time for the first 4 months of the program. You have to be able to kind of grin and bear a lot of things. You have to know that you're going to have homework at night. You're going to have to work on Saturdays this coming year. There'll be 22 fellows, and our largest until then had been 14. So this is going to be quite something. We set the goal because we wanted folks to know that we are not boutique, but it's really going to change the way we exist as an organization, and we look forward to it. Winning is academic achievement. And you know, you have very little to go on in the beginning, so you say, we were just chartered, we were just authorized. But that's not it. That's not the sign of having won. We got full enrollment for our first year. That's terrific, but that's not a win. What the real win is 3 years into it, or when your first third grade is tested, that these scores are out of the world fantastic. And not just compared to the district. We don't want to be, we are doing so well, we're 15 points over the district. We want to blow the district, we want to blow ourselves out of the water over the district, because to us, that's the reason for our existence. We want to be better academically. We want to be smarter. We don't want every other nation in the world to be smarter than we are. So for us, when we can publish a report card of our schools, where most all of our schools are in the network, which is our kind of elite, we call it unique and elite, when you have reached that point after year 3 in which your scores are reliably off the charts, then you come into the network and you get coaching all the time. You can't please everybody. And we're doing what we think works best, but we believe that it works and works better than other things we've seen. We would love to find a way to allow our schools not to worry about money so much. And I think it's probably endemic to anyone who works with people. You never really have enough money. But so much time and energy is spent on facilities. When they say, charter schools come without schoolhouses, that's huge. It's hard. It's really hard. It's interesting to think about where charter land is going to be in 10 years. In Houston, there are over 32,000 children on a wait list. In Houston, 32,000 students who aren't getting an education, or the one that they want, or are able to make a choice. I think that means that there's room. And maybe what happens over the next 10 years is we see more growth in the larger states. And I think we're never going to want to leave these children behind.
Oh, I just listened to her story, and a couple things just really struck me. One, it's really amazing how Linda saw this gap, right? And the gap in the talent in our school's leaders. And so that really meant that she was looking at the system as a whole and saying, all right, there's something in the system that could use a little bit more work. And then putting her life and her passion and her networks, her colleagues, really into the process of filling that gap. So I really like that part. It was like building from scratch, like making your own homemade dish. And I feel like true founders don't wait for permission. They really create what's missing in their fields.
Yeah, they sure don't. True founders are people of action and they see a problem and they tackle it head on. But with Linda, one of the things that she really realized that came through is that in tackling the problem of creating more great schools for kids, is that we needed to think about excellence. And when we think about excellence, excellence requires structure and accountability. So early on in the charter movement, we often had this phrase of let a thousand flowers bloom. Let's let a bunch of people try new things. Some of it will work, some of it won't, and we'll see what happens. Linda kind of rejected that early mindset. She insisted that authorizing a school wasn't the success itself, that student outcomes were the success for it. So she was really focused on what it meant to get great outcomes for kids, and through that, she worked to raise expectations for rigor, homework, and parental partnership in the schools that she helped found.
That's right. And I think about like what was going on during that time in her early days of building the BES program. And I believe what was happening too in the name of let a thousand flowers bloom is that some of those flowers, as she calls it, weren't doing well. And when schools aren't doing well, sometimes the blame game begins to be played. And what started to happen is folks are like, oh, well, certain students, meaning students in poverty, students that had socioeconomic challenges, they started to kind of make that a part of the story. And what I love about Linda Brown is she says, oh, no, no, no. We're not taking that as an excuse. We're not even going to let that rhetoric be a part of our programming. She said, now, let's be clear. Not only was there like this element of financial or socioeconomic poverty, her issue was like, we've got a literacy challenge. And I think she actually says this in her interview. And she says, we are facing a poverty of literacy. Right. And so
Yep.
that was really part of her passion. And she talks about these leaders like they're going to come, you're going to be a part of BES, we're going to create these new schools. But believe me, baby, you're going to work. You're going to dedicate some weekends, some nights. This is not going to be easy because what we have in front of us is the opportunity to shift that poverty of literacy and all sorts of other potential outcomes for students by making sure that they have strong leaders and strong teachers. And I really wanted to elevate that because that's such a powerful lesson that I believe she taught us through her work.
It really is. And the key word in that is work. Linda Brown was the type of person who cared about the details. She cared about the long hours. She really showed that leadership is learned through commitment. And when you were in BES, it demanded hard work. You had long hours, you were studying on Saturdays, it required relocation and resilience. But through that shared work, it really built a sense of camaraderie, a movement, truly a movement. That fellowship experience built the leaders who could withstand the challenges, and they founded really great schools that are sustaining change for kids today.
That's right. And what I love about the process, so these fellows spent months making sure that they had the professional development. They were able to see some other excellent schools and be around other excellent school leaders. But their task at hand really and truly was writing that charter application. And then once they did get authorized, they did have an official charter. Now they've got to go through what we call year zero, right? You got to do your planning year and get that school put together. And so sometimes what would happen in those early stages is folks would celebrate, like, oh, we've won because we have the charter, or oh, we've won because I actually met my enrollment goal. And I love Linda because she says that's not the win. Like, what are we talking about? The win is when students achieve. We have only just set the platform up for the true win to happen. And so it just tells me that she never took her eyes off of the prize. And she taught leaders how to measure success by impact, not intention, and not by some of these kind of inputs. And I love that about her.
Vashanta, back in the authorizing days, whenever we'd issue a charter to a new group, the group would always be very celebratory, and I'd always congratulate them that the easiest part of their school journey is now over. And once the kids show up, that's when the real work begins. So I hope I carried a little bit of that Linda Brown spirit into that
You
authorizing work.
absolutely did.
But what Linda Brown's story reminds us of is that excellence doesn't emerge by accident. It's engineered through vision, discipline, and a belief in what's possible.
Absolutely. Her legacy lives in every BES trained leader and every classroom where high expectations were met with deep care. And she showed us that, in her instance, to be bold by choice is to build systems that last.
The Founders Library is really honored to preserve part of Linda Brown's legacy. So we have a very special collection of her and tribute memorials from her to her on the library's website at charterlibrary.org. So I'd encourage you to check that out. But more importantly, to learn more about Linda Brown's work, visit buildingexcellentschools.org or explore her full oral history that's online at the Founders Library.
Well, friends, you know what I always say. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, follow us, like us, share comments and your reviews on our social media channels. We truly want to hear from you all in the field. Now, next time, we are going to be moving into season 3. And I am super pumped for you all to be able to hear the season 3 stories. We're going into schools. We're bringing in school leaders who are going to share their leadership journeys and the special sauce of what makes families and students choose their school building. So I'm really excited about that. I'm over the moon, and I hope you all stay with us and share this with a friend. Well, until then, stay bold.